Professional. Not everyone calls me that. Here we go. So welcome to the BTS Creative Academy podcast. We're here at Thought Bubble. This episode is sponsored by Supernova Media. They look to support and help creatives in their endeavours. So thank you, Supernova, for bringing me to Thought Bubble. But I'm here with Charlie.
Hello.
So Charlie, welcome to the podcast. Tell me, what brings you to Thought Bubble?
I come every year, basically.
Okay.
There's not many decent comic shows in the UK. Well, in the world, really. I get really put off by the sort of monster ones because, they're called Comic Cons, but really that's about 10% of what they are. So, you always feel a very, very tiny fish in a very, very large pond. Mm-hmm. So, and of course, they're not really about comic books, whereas Thought Bubble and LICAF, which is the Lakes International Comic Art Festival, which I'm a patron of, are the only two, in my opinion, sort of games in town in terms of comics to
comic book festival.
Exactly. Yes.
Whereas those Comic Cons, they've turned into, they're good, they're nice for general public, and there's a lot of love there for them. But it is movies, film stars, TV shows.
It's a money making enterprise as well. Everyone's charging. Everyone, is in there. Everyone that sat behind every single table is there to make money, which is fine. It is what it is. Yeah. But not to sound all very above it all, and
well, the vibe that I'm getting from here, this being my first time, is I'm getting the sense of community here.
Yes,
that is different because everyone's here with a shared love and a shared passion for the comic books.
Yeah, and most of us know each other from I'm one of the old school now, so of course I've been coming to these things for 30 plus years. I've been working professionally for 32 years, so it's all the old faces that I enjoy. It's the social thing in the end of the day.
People coming together. So tell me a little bit about what it is you do and what you're bringing to the world of comic books.
Well, I am, as you probably gathered, an artist, primarily known for 16 years drawing The Walking Dead. That's my main sort of comic sort of thing. That's the thing I will probably be remembered for, because that's a hell of a chunk of my professional career. So, myself and Robert Kirkman, I didn't do the first 6 issues, but I did literally everything else. So, anything post that, we co-created together, create our own comic book. So, of course, benefit in kind. But before that, I did everything a comic book artist probably did. I was quite famous for doing a run on the XFiles comic book prior to that, but I did my sort of duty at the coalface of superhero comics as well. But it wasn't kind of my thing, which is that's just a style choice. I'm not really that suited for the world of spandex, so I did a bit of it. Obviously, Walking Dead came calling. I'm certainly not returning to that afterwards. So, and now I'm just pursuing various creator-owned projects, which is, The Walking Dead has given me. I'm very lucky. The Walking Dead has given me the opportunity to be able to do stuff like that and not have to go for something that inverted commas pays the best.
So you're in the world of horror genre within the comic book. Was that where your art leans to? Tell me I'm wrong.
No. I mean, you work on a book, like I say, for that long, and it's a horror comic. Obviously, everyone just assumes that's your thing. I do use a lot of black in my, because I pencil and ink, so I use a lot of black in my work. For me, it's a design tool, obviously, for, shall we say, somebody that's not as au fait with the art as I might be. They might see it as, it's all dark, so therefore it's all horrific, Okay. So, and I got into The Walking Dead because I love the characters. I'm not that big a sounds awful to say. I'm not that big a fan. I don't mind zombies, but I'm not they're not the be all and end all. Everyone thinks I'm this vast font of knowledge on zombies after drawing them for that long. But I'm not. I'm not. I drew The Walking Dead because I love the characters and I love I wouldn't have drawn the book for that long.
And I think
if the characters weren't so.
Well, that's why it's appealing to the readers, isn't it? Because it's about the characters. It isn't it's almost the whole thing of The Walking Dead is that it's not actually about the zombies. It's about the people. They're the people of The Walking Dead. I always
say the zombies were the biggest MacGuffin in the whole book. You know, they're just there to basically make the characters go from A to B to C. You know, and like I say, anything with longevity, it's all because of character. You know, you can't tell me. You show me anything that's lasted, and it's going to be about the characters in the book, the film, the TV show, whatever.
So we touched on there that you weren't excited either by superheroes. That wasn't kind of your thing. So is the storytelling and the people, the drama, is that where you want to lean into with your artistry?
Absolutely.
Where did that begin for you?
God. I mean, I've been drawing comic books since I was about 6. So, you know, I think you've probably everyone you'll talk to here probably did it from a very young age. It's not the sort of thing you kind of go, when you're, I don't know, 38, you suddenly go, I think I'll try this.
I want to do this one.
Yeah. So most of us have been doing it for forever, you know.
Yes. But how do we go from, so myself, I loved comic books when I was growing up, and I sketched them and drew them, but at some point I stopped doing that and didn't ever come back to it again. But was that the case with you, that you just didn't stop?
I just didn't stop. I mean, I think like most people, you know, I got to sort of my 17, 18, decided that, you know, put all childish things behind me. I don't know, you know, I still drew a bit. I mean, obviously I had talent at that, you know, it wasn't just I was struggling away, with everybody else, you know, and I believe everyone has a talent, and, you know, basically drawing is the only thing I can do, you know. I was terrible at sport, brutally average sort of academia. So, you know, I spent my time in the art building at school. So, it was kind of inevitable. I had a bit of a dalliance with other things. I went to art college, but I studied film and video. I spent, a while in London, laughably being in a band, trying to make it in the music industry. Heavy quotation marks on that. And then eventually just sort of circuitously, when everything else kind of failed, moved back to comics. But as soon as I feel like everyone has to go through that to get to the thing they really want to do, and that's definitely what happened to me, because as soon as I started drawing again in probably my mid-20s, and it wasn't like I completely stopped, but it was up until I was sort of late teens, I was drawing every day, and then I would probably draw once a week or something like that. So as soon as I got back into the idea of it as a serious thing again, I kind of thought, this is. But
I guess the world is kind of telling you that, doing drawing as an adult as your career is not necessarily something you should do, because it's not very sustainable, is it? It's not a safe career choice.
Well, I think my mum and dad, all power to them. They never, they all supported me. They never said, "Oh, you shouldn't be." There's no real artistic strain through the family, so it's not like they've seen success by other people. I think it was probably because my mum definitely was more relieved when I decided that the music thing was been. She probably obviously saw comics as slightly less better. Fraught. Yes. She's quite relieved, I think.
So how has that influenced you though? Having that moment of exploring other creative genres and fields that are completely different, aren't they? To being an artist, being a comic book creator, to being a musician. But I do feel like it can help you along the way. How has it helped you?
Oh gosh, I still play. You see, for me, it's just. I suppose we all have to have a hobby. My hobby has become my job, so I have to put a hobby on top of it. So I don't know. It's just another creative outlet. It's as simple as that. Do
you think it helps expand our minds a bit? Helps make us look at things a bit different? I'm going deep here, aren't I?
I know. Oh God!
sometimes this happens.
This is going into an interesting direction. God, I've never really considered that. I've just. On a very base level, I've just always loved doing, creative things, and that, like I said before, it's just another aspect. It's a release, a more, a different release. It's a different thing. I mean, it's not exactly the same, but for quite a few years, myself and another comic artist, Dan Berry, who lives locally to where I live as well, we spent every Tuesday evening going live drawing. And a lot of people said, God, how can you do that? How can you spend, 6, 7, 8 hours sat at a drawing board or whatever, drawing comic books, and then you go to this live drawing. It's not a
and
class,
do more drawing.
And do more drawing, And I was like, it's different. It's to coin a cliche, a change is as good as a rest. It's a completely different discipline, that sort of drawing, as opposed to sort of the fairly rigid sort of medium which relies on finished artwork, where you go away and you do life drawing and you've got perhaps 5 minutes to quickly get down the figure and you draw without thinking. There's a lot of thought with comic books. It's the opposite. I suppose music is the same sort of release. It's on a different sort of level of your brain. That you think, all right, okay, this is creative, but there are connections as well. I mean, I work a lot digitally now, and I'm lucky that in my house I've got a room where we actually rehearse, and I have a computer set up with Logic and everything on it, so we can record. It's not that dissimilar to working digitally. Everything's in layers, and I can sort of. I'm not a technical guy as well, but I can sort of understand it just on that very base level instantly because of things like that. So there's the kind of connections that sort of link up. That
it does pull into the craft is the hobbies that are external, and the other creative pursuits they do pull back into this.
Exactly. And of course I can do the album covers as well, so I can have total creative control.
Tell me a little bit about the album covers then.
The album covers.
This is for your own personal music?
Oh yeah. I mean, God, it's just hobby stuff now. I mean, as an external thing though, it's always really interesting doing stuff outside of the comic books. I mean, I'm a massive fan of sort of, I can never know how to really describe this sort of 60s, going into the 70s sort of illustration artwork. Most of it is American artwork. Guys like Bernie Fuchs and Bob Peak, people like that did these just that work for all these kind of women's magazines and things like that, because everything, they had stories in it at the time, and everything had to be illustrated, and photography was still kind of not the big thing as it obviously came to be. After the sort of the 60s had finished, everything was illustrated, and I love all that stuff because there's a nice element of design coming into it. The 50s was great in illustration, but there was it was a bit more representational, whereas by the time we get to the 60s, it's getting a bit more abstract. It's still inverted commas real, but there's a like design elements. There's sort of like I say, more abstraction, more looseness to everything, which I absolutely just suck up, and I love it. And I kind of try and apply that to, if I'm doing anything outside of, everyone wants, initially when I get asked to do something, it tends to be because they've read The Walking Dead.
Yes,
and they obviously want something of a similar vein, which is fine because I can understand that they see that and they think that's what I want to do.
Yeah.
But I've been there, I've done that. So quite often they're quite disappointed when I come up with some crazy design which is full of colour or whatever, and it's got nothing to do with. As
an artist,
horror.
We don't want to be put in boxes, do we? We don't want to be really tied to just this one thing. We want to expand. We have that capacity to be more than the thing that necessarily made us successful.
Absolutely. I mean, it's hard to break out of your little pigeonhole. It really is. I mean, good God, I do not regret that pigeonhole I've been put in, because it's it's sort of set me up for life. It's sort of made me what I am, etc., etc. And I'll be eternally grateful to Robert, for initially sending me an email saying, do you want to work on this little zombie book I'm doing, and all this sort of stuff. But at the same time, you do want to be known for other stuff apart from that, and whether I do or not, I don't know. A lot of it doesn't really matter because I am lucky. I keep saying I'm lucky because I can just afford to do stuff, whether it sells a couple of hundred copies or 200,000 copies. I've done it. Yeah, that's
in some ways you're living the dream. You're living the dream of a lot of artists. So again, we have to kind of balance that with some kind of gratitude. But at the same time, there are going to be some pitfalls.
Yeah. I mean, it's just great to be able to to be able to have that freedom to just do stuff. To accept a project just because you like it. Nothing to do with any other external forces. Who's publishing it? How many copies it'll sell. It's literally, here's a script. Do I like this script? Yes, I do. Okay, I'll do it. It's as simple as that. Even if it's for the tiniest publisher, it doesn't matter for me. I always say, people quite often ask me, editors especially, will say, what would you like to do? And I always just say, I don't care so long as it's good. No zombies.
No more zombies.
No more zombies.
No more zombies.
But that's the only stipulation. But everything else is literally.
So what would happen then if someone comes to you with a really good zombie story?
I honestly probably wouldn't do it.
No.
I've just done it. I've really finished.
That's fair.
And I mean.
And it gave you that stepping stone up to the next level.
Yeah.
So we've talked about this actually. I want to come back to something because we kind of was touching on it. I want to know a little bit about your inspirations. What inspired you? What made you the artist you were today? You talked a bit about the artwork in the 70s and around that era. So what sent you off on this path? Because at this moment, you're now an inspiration to others.
Oh, I hope so. Yeah, I know. I mean, one of my earliest memories is my dad coming back from work. I mean, he ran a couple of sort of small businesses like shops and things like that local in town, and one of them just happened to be a newsagent, which is quite handy. And he came back with The Mighty World of Marvel #1, which was from 1972, and it was obviously a British reprint collection of various Marvel comics, and it had because it's anthologized like all British comics were back in the day, and kind of still are. So it had Spider-Man, the Fantastic Four, and the Incredible Hulk in. So that's my first real memory of reading comic books, and I'd seen things like the Dandy and Beano and the more traditional British comic books at the time.
But this was Marvel was definitely doing something new.
Well, they were very and they were very canny to produce stuff for the British market, whereas DC or any of the other competition didn't. You see, right. You could only just go to the spinner racks and get random issues that whatever was imported that month, and it was all random and it was all just separate issues. You could never get issue, sort of 26, and then next month get issue 27, for instance. So, so it was a great, sort of way into that sort of comic books. And for me, it was like, oh, this is what I want to read. I was never interested in, Dennis the Menace or whatever. That's what. And I especially gravitated towards the Fantastic Four because I was getting into science fiction and things like that. So that was obviously the most sci-fi one of the three.
Yeah, but also that element of drama, that family drama that was going on in the Fantastic Four was different to the other stories, wasn't it?
Yeah, well, characters again, isn't it? Perennially brilliant characters. But at the same time. Again, my dad, he used to go fill his car up at this certain petrol station. It was running a promotion, and the promotion was, obviously, if you filled your car up enough times, you could get a free Asterix book. So, and I got rather obsessed with Asterix. I mean, I remember I do the 4 Asterix books I still remember to this day. It was Asterix the Gaul, Asterix and the Big Fight, Asterix the Gladiator, and Asterix the Legionnaire. Those are the 4 ones it was sort of doing this promotion on. And, I pestered my dad to constantly just go back and fill at this station so I could get another one and another one, So on one hand, I was being fed American comic books. And unbeknownst to me at the time, obviously I didn't know where I assumed Asterix was British at the time, you know. Yeah. I was being fed French bande dessinée as well. And I've been a massive fan. In fact, I'd say, the French comic book market, as they call it over there, bande dessinée, is probably my biggest influence and my favourite sort of industry, for want of a better word. You know, beyond manga to me is just a very still and unknown quantity. You know, I'm not gonna, I can't slag it off because it's just a ludicrously massive force, but it's almost for me so massive that it's almost impenetrable.
Well, it's also of this time, of this moment. It's quite a big thing, the manga comics. Yeah. Whereas that French comic book, the Asterix and Obelix, was of your time.
Well, for me, it was. Obviously, manga's been going for decades, but not
receiving
here.
It here in the UK.
Exactly. Whereas Asterix had broken through. It was there in the 70s, you know. Okay, albeit it was just Asterix and Tintin, and that was it. And then you got hints of, back when it became the late 70s, of Metal Hurlant. That came out, you know, but still it was, so Mobius was a vague. I think I came to Mobius more for looking at when I was a kid, looking at the design book for Alien or something like that, because he contributed to the designs, with Geiger for Alien. And just loving all that, and then realising he was a comic book artist, and there's this magazine in France called Metal Hurlant, and blah, 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 and then I went to this show called Angoulême, which is in the town of Angoulême, and back in the mid-90s, because there's some friends of mine who were really into that side of the industry, so they said, why do you come to Angoulême? It's this huge show, 100,000 people at this thing, town about the size of Harrogate, literally takes it over, marquees everywhere, you can walk around, it's like a proper festival. But the incredible thing about Angoulême is it's 90% French comic books, and there's that many people for it. It's open by the, every year it's opened by the French Minister of Culture and all this stuff. French comic books over there are called the ninth art. So it's it's instantly lumped in with fine art, painting, sculpture, printmaking, video, whatever the other 8 arts are. It's and I have done a couple of bande dessinées now. The Walking Dead was the number 1 selling French comic book for ages over there, but I was lucky enough, I've done 3 sort of actual working for the French publishers, sort of original stuff, which is great and an honor, and the last one only came out last year, so hopefully it'll be reprinted in English this year.
And so
next year, actually.
I wanted to know a little bit about what you're working on at the moment. Then we touched on this a little bit earlier. What is it that no more Walking Dead?
No more
Walking Dead. We know that. So what's happening right now for you?
Well, the Walking Dead finished in 2019. So I've had sort of obviously near. It'll be 5 years in February when it finished. So in those 5 years, I've kicked back a bit, obviously.
Yeah, you can. When you've had a great achievement, you're allowed to sit back and rest for a moment.
It was literally 22 pages and a cover every month, and we kept that schedule up for that length of time.
Yeah, you deserve to put your feet up for a minute.
Thanks. Actually, ironically, the first book I did after The Walking Dead is literally the last one coming out now. It's a book called Heretic, and it's written by my pal Robbie Morrison, and we worked together years ago on a book called White Death, which was actually our first creator-owned book that we'd both done, and that was geared primarily for the French market, actually, because it was the typical large format French sort of format, single story. But Heretic is a 120-page finite sort of murder mystery book set in 16th century Antwerp, so all good commercial stuff, and it's based on...
But it sounds like stuff that you love.
Yeah, oh God, yeah. Well, Rob is a brilliant writer, and we've always been friends. We've done post-White Death, in between that and this one we've done together. We worked on a few things, because Robbie created Nikolai Dante for 2000 AD, which became, after Judge Dredd at the time, the most popular character. So I did a few things with that. We done a few other fiddly things here and there, and all stayed in touch. But as soon as I knew The Walking Dead was coming to an end, I sort of got in touch with them and said, and he's another guy that lives just down the road from me as well.
Wow.
So I said, since you're here in Shrewsbury where I live, I said, it's inevitable we've got to work together. So we sort of got this together, but various factors just, all out of our control sort of thing, just meant that the book is now coming out now, as opposed to even though it was finished. I finished it, 3 years ago, something like that. So, but yeah, there's a few other things that have come out. Like I say, this French bande dessinée would hopefully be released in English, which is called Altamont, which a very short history of that is I came up with this kernel of idea. I wanted to do a book about music, obviously being
the musician.
What I do. Yeah. But I do also think doing comics about music is the hardest sort of thing to do because there's no sound. It's visuals, but you can't. You can show what the music is, but you can't hear the music. And Altamont, and I also wanted to do something sort of set in the 60s. Primarily, I got this idea about I wanted to do something set at the end of the 60s about why we went from the hippie ideal to the sort of the paranoid 70s and to where we are today, arguably even worse. And I thought it was really good. And then I've found out that Altamont, which was a Rolling Stones festival put on, obviously by the Stones, as an answer to Woodstock in Altamont Speedway, which was just outside of San Francisco. And it's notoriously lumped with the Manson murders as being the two significant events which ended, shall we say, the 60s, and the hippie idea was both obviously were occurring in 69. Altamont was literally the tail end of 69. It was December 69, and it had famously had Hell's Angels as security. It was completely disorganized. There were drug deaths and things like that, which is kind of at that time of the year, that time of the period is kind of inevitable, I suppose. There were drug deaths at Woodstock, but it famously culminated in someone being shot and killed in front of the Stones as they were performing. There was just this atmosphere of just darkness, of just this was not a happy event. Jeff Snare played a few, came on, and their guitarist gets punched. Why
do you think there was so much negativity in there? What was driving that? Was it just in the air? Was it just?
It was
that
just
time?
literally in the air because it was a free festival. Literally 500,000 people descended on it because it was this free festival. They weren't prepared for the amount of people. And it was just chaos. It was chaos.
Because then this happened again in the 90s, didn't it?
That Woodstock one.
There was the Woodstock in the 90s, which ended terribly.
Yeah, well, it was just awful organisation. I don't know if that can be blamed or you can blame it on just the time. But I didn't want to do just a story about Woodstock, about Altamont, because that's been done. There's a really good documentary on it and things like that called Give Me Shelter. And so I thought, well, let's tell a story about some other people who go to the festival and go through their heart of darkness. And I thought that's the best way to do the music as well, because basically it's all happening in the background as these characters are in the foreground. So you've got this nice juxtaposition of stuff going on, and you hear snippets of like, what's going on with the certain band, he's been punched, and they walked off. The Grateful Dead apparently helicoptered in, saw what was going on, and helicoptered straight back out again. And they were at the time they were the second, the last band on before the Stones, so they were huge at the time. Just to do that and go, nope, we ain't playing here. Nope, So that was.
So is this pure fiction within a real moment?
Well, it's pure fiction within a real setting. Similar to, actually, Heretic's very similar, because again it's a fictional story, but with the two main characters are based on factual figures from the 16th century. So I'm not saying this is my thing. It is just pure coincidence that two of my most major projects of the post Walking Dead have been based shall we say, around fact.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, and yeah, it's. I did start a project at the beginning of this year with the same writer of Altamont. I mean, it's a long story why it ended up being a French comic, because you think it would be a typically American comic book project. I won't bore you with the details. It was just I ended up finding the right writer, and he just happened to be French, and it just happened to be published by Glenard, this big French publisher. So I didn't care. They do a lovely job.
All the elements started to work out.
Yeah. So, so that was. What was I've lost my thread now.
That happens sometimes when we go on these long journeys.
So, I was about to start another project with the same writer because we got on really well, and for various reasons it just didn't work out, and I ended up sort of just leaving the project. And sort of going, right, okay, I've got nothing to do now. For the first day, that was brilliant. It was I've got nothing to do. This is brilliant. What could I do? And I think like all of us creatives, we can't just not do anything.
No.
So I needed to find a project fast. And I can't, because I don't write, I can't conjure up a project instantly because it's got to be written first. And I don't want to go, I didn't want to go to, like Marvel or DC and say, go any work. It just sounded a bit,
It's a really hard thing for a creative when you do a thing, but you've got to wait for someone else.
Yeah.
You've got to wait for someone else to ignite something first.
Yeah, exactly.
I guess that's, again, going back to the importance of having the other creative outlets that you can do, the different artwork, the music. But how are you dealing with that then? The waiting, is it in searching?
What I did, which is funny because I had a project in mind. When I was life drawing, I published just Vanity Publishing. I did a collection of my life drawings as a book, just published 200 copies and, enough for anyone that was interested sort of thing. But, it's just nice myself to have a nice book of that sort of stuff. So I thought at the time it would be nice to do a follow-up, but not life drawing, just the sort of sat primarily in coffee shops, just drawing live. So a bit more, I suppose, for want of a better word, guerrilla drawing. Because obviously with life drawing, the models are where you're drawing them and vice versa. It's a very controlled environment. If you're sat in a cafe or whatever, it's not such a controlled environment. So it's a slightly different way of working. So I thought that would be a good thing. And of course, that's something I could start straight away. As soon as I'd walked off of this project, I didn't have to wait for that. So I literally spent about 2 months, not totally in cafes. I'd have got a very shaky hand, but I'd spend a lot of time in cafes drawing. I'd obviously tell them, I was coming in and stuff. Just sort of sit in the corner drawing, take loads of photographs, work on stuff in the studio at home. And at the same time, I happened to be a patron of an little arts centre in town called The Hive. And like most charities, especially arts charities, post-pandemic, it's been really struggling to get funding. They told me at one point it was pre-pandemic that it was about 1 in 7 chance that they'd get, a decent, charitable donation for whatever company they're going for, and they've got a professional person who is one of these professional fundraisers and everything. So that they're doing it as professionally as possible. Post pandemic, it's 1 in 14 all of a sudden. So of course,
the value of the arts, it would seem worldwide, have been put on a lower scale after the pandemic. But part of what I'm trying to do here is change that conversation because I personally know the value of the art as a consumer and as someone that tries to contribute as well. In both sides of my life, it is. I would probably wouldn't be here today without the arts.
Absolutely.
So how do we change this conversation? How do we change this atmosphere after the pandemic of the arts haven't got the value? It's hard, isn't it? Because we need the hospitals, we need the police,
of course,
and they'll do much more important things than what we're doing. But how do we keep our place up there?
Well, it is hard because I think the problem with the arts, shall we say, is it's in an unquantifiable kind of surreal thing for people to comprehend. Yeah, like you say, the NHS, it's a physical sort of thing you can understand.
And we can put some numbers to that.
Put some numbers to it, and you basically can throw money at it, and hopefully it gets better. Same with anything like that, like you just mentioned, the police or whatever. But with the arts, it's just this vague sort of thing, and people don't really understand. Why should we sort of contribute to, I don't know, this sculpture that's costing sort of 20 grand, whatever it is to put up in the, and yeah. I mean, I struggle to quantify. Not that I don't struggle to quantify it, but I struggle to explain my, sort of. It's all to do with just general well-being, isn't it?
Yeah, and I wonder if you was questioning that, just take a look in here at this festival, the community that's here, the people. The lives that it affects. Yeah,
how many people are going to come away? This could be a lot of people's only outlet into not just comics, but the arts. Yeah, like you say, and if they find their community, if they're happier because of it, things like this. But it's the same. I set up a foundation with Walking Dead money to basically, and its two main aims are to sponsor the arts and the environment, because I think those are the two unquantifiable things that are, sort of kind of opposite ends of the scale, but they're both things that people cannot sort of get to grips with because they're not instant. They're not just there sort of saying, hello, I'm affecting you right now sort of thing. Yeah. So with the Hive, they ran a local sort of thing saying, it was basically Save the Hive, and they were asking for £50,000. And I remember thinking, 50 grand, that's a big ask, for the local community sort of thing. Yeah. But they did it. They raised 50 grand. And so I thought, well, this book I'm doing, which is called Coffee Shop, which is I'm signing a bit later, I have on my table.
Good.
But I thought I'll do it all for the Hive. So I published put the book out, printed the book, it's paid for it all, obviously. We've raised £5 grand so far for the Hive from the publication of that book and sale of original art. We had a gallery opening and everything like that. So that kept me busy until comics came back into my life, and now I'm doing some more comic book work. So
we've kind of touched on it, but I'd like to know a little bit about your hopes and dreams for the future. Then I get a sense and a feeling that it's got something to do with the Hive, and it's got something to do with community.
Yeah,
but what do you see for the future then?
I'm always interested in, as I keep saying, I just sound like a broken record on this, but I'm just very lucky that I can do this sort of stuff, and it doesn't, I can afford to do it. I can afford to work for nothing on something like this. So, if it fuels me creatively, I'm quite happy to do it. So there'll be a lot more of that sort of stuff locally. I mean, this is all, like I say, this isn't national. Not many comics people are going to find out about this, because this is just very much in my community in my little town of Shrewsbury. But there are obviously outside of that there are African comic projects which I'm starting up. There's one. Unfortunately, I can't talk about either of them because they're right at the beginning of gestation. But there's one which I'm literally doing just on spec, which is perfect, and the writer's quite happy with that because he's got a day job and everything, so he's quite happy. He says, I don't care if it's released 5 years down the line. I was like, brilliant, that's perfect for me. So it's literally something I can dip into when there's nothing else to do, sort of thing, or nothing else pressing. So that's lovely to have that just there, and it's not pressurized. It's not anything I can do sort of 3 or 4 pages casually or whatever here and there, and just suddenly it'll be done. I know that, and there's a few other things coming out, or I will be working on, in the future. I just finished a couple of short stories for this EC Comics relaunch that an American comics company called Oni are sort of collaborating with the EC Comics brand to put out, and which is good fun because they're just nice little short stories yeah, you're in and out within 2 or 3 weeks. I kind of like that, it's just a nice little placeholder, gap filler, and they're nice little stories, so that's all good fun. And I can, I've got more into colouring my books as well, but when you do a lot, I mean, Altamont was the only book I've ever penciled, inked and coloured the whole thing.
Right.
But of course that took forever doing all 3 processes. I'm really slow colorist because I don't do enough of it to get the technology down quick. And professional colorists can probably do 2 or 3 pages a day. I'm like,
because they're in the flow of that.
They're in the flow and they understand all the shortcuts. And,
well, this is why they are different skills.
Yes,
why they are different
absolutely.
skill
Whereas my skill sets, I just don't do it enough to work out those sort of shortcuts. So I'm a lot slower, So, but it's good to do the short stories in colour because hey, it's only 10. Yeah. Well, the maximum I've done was one. I did one that was 10 pages. The other one was 6 pages, and the other one was 8. So it's just nice. I can work on the colour and take my own time over it. And yeah. But it's interesting because the one I'm doing on spec actually is a bit of a reversion back to how I worked on The Walking Dead, which is fast. And there is a kind of, which goes back to the life drawing actually. There's a kind of a freedom to working fast and not thinking about it. Because what I did with The Walking Dead to enable myself to do that much stuff, I'd literally do a page, and as soon as I work very standardly top left to bottom right. As soon as I've finished, put it away, don't look at it again, because that's the problem most artists do. They look at it and then they see the mistakes and they go overanalyze, correct,
and that kind of stagnates it and almost puts barriers in the way of the progress.
You can never stop then. There has to be a moment where you have to stop. Regardless of whether, I always say it's called the comics industry for a reason, but not just that, you've got to stop at some point. And a couple of projects that I've done, like I say, since The Walking Dead, like say Heretic or Altamont, I had the freedom to take my time over it. And I don't know if that's necessarily a good thing, because,
So would you say your best work comes from a place of flow?
Yes, definitely. Get in the flow. So I'm trying to sort of get back to that a bit with this other project, to sort of think, do it fast. Just do it. As soon as you've finished, put it away, get on to the next page. That the process is the story. The story is king. If you've got the story down, that's the main thing. If there's a few dodgy bits, don't worry about it. This is quite a long book. It's 180 pages, so it's a lot of pages. So you kind of think, right, okay, not every page is going to be brilliant. So yeah, just keep going. There'll be moments of, in my opinion, genius, but that's fine. So long as there's a couple, that's fine.
So at this point, then, I want to ask you just for a little bit of advice to new young artists that are having that. They're trying to move forward with their process, and they're doing that whole because it's very common, isn't it, to overanalyze. To take your time over all the fine small details, but nothing's moving forward for them. What advice would you give to them?
Well, that's the problem, isn't it? Because you will overanalyze your own artwork. I mean, I did when I was trying to break in. I think the best thing to do is not overanalyze, not work. Do that thing, whatever you're doing, finish it or whatever. Then just move on to something else. And hopefully at one point you'll just get better and better each time. Don't constantly go back to the same 6 pages and rework. If you're doing digital stuff, it's so bloody easy to do that as well. It's hard. It was probably easier back in my day, when we're all just working on pen and paper, because it's harder to go back and rework it. So
has the digital world created a bit of a trap for artists then?
I think it has in a lot of ways, and I'm as guilty as the next person, because 90% of my stuff tends to be digital. It's a lot easier to sit the old Cintiq now and just draw away, and it's right by your computer and everything's there, whereas my drawing board's across the room over there, and if I want a bit of reference, you've got to sort of walk back to the Mac and have a look. It's just a bit. I know it sounds really sort of petty, but there's those little elements of you just want to be in it, and anything that takes you out of it is annoying. And
Yes.
quite often I'll be quite lazy and I won't go and look at that reference. Then I'll just try and fudge it. You know, for that 2 seconds worth of getting up and doing something. You know, it's crazy when I think about it. You know, so I think. Yeah, I think if you're trying to break in and you've got a project and you might have shown it around, don't come back with the same project but just reworked next time. Come back with something completely different. And you've also, as somebody, you've got to appreciate if you're going to get in this industry, and I say industry, you know, you can't show me a few pages and say, oh, that took me, you know, a month to do. You go, well, that's not going to do you any good, is it? You know, because people are going to want you to do that number of pages in a week or less, you know, not a month. So you've got to sort of prove to people that you're capable of producing the work to a certain level consistently. And consistency, I think a lot of people forget about, is that fact that it's just got to be constantly...
Almost got to be part of your life.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. But like I say, it's all flow. You know, once you get in the flow, it's great, you know, because that's the story. I mean, when I first broke in the industry, this was the early 90s, so everyone was painting comic books at the time because that was the fashion. So, of course, it slowed you down incredibly because you're painting stuff. You know, it'd take you 2-3 days to do a page, and you're losing complete sense of the story because of it, because you're just noodling away, working with acrylics or watercolor or whatever it is. You know, you're not getting a sense of the story then. So it was so nice for me anyway when I suddenly got to do black and white, and that was it. You know, suddenly I could do at least a page a day, and you're going bang, 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 getting the idea and sort of going through the story and going, right, yes, this is working, this character's doing that from A to B to C. You know, you're not sort of getting bogged down in a panel and it's taking, you know, half a day to paint this one bloody panel. You know, so it is there's a lot to be said for just
powering through.
Yeah.
I'm really interested in this flow thing at the moment. I'm trying to actually write about flow because talking to different creatives in different fields, we all find a place of fulfillment, and it helps our craft move forward when we find flow. But it's kind of elusive to us as well because we can't force it, can we? We can't force ourselves there. Or have you found a way to enter into it?
And I suppose I'm quite... It helps because I'm quite... I've touched the old OCD sort of thing.
Yes,
so I'm quite rigid in my sort of day-to-day...
In your routine?
In my routine.
Okay.
So that helps with what I do. It's a brilliant thing to have as a freelancer because you go, right, I'm going to start at whatever it is. I mean, my routine now is you know, it was slightly different. I've got older kids, so, you know, I used to take them to school, go to work. Now they're one's at university, one's working, so it's different now. But I've always been an early riser, which is quite useful. So what I tend to do now is fairly rigidly every day get up at about 6:30. I'll do an hour or so just faffing, sort of the email, the good old cup of tea, good old email check, blah blah blah. Then I'll go for a bit of a run, get a bit of exercise, have a bit of breakfast, shower, blah, 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 blah. Back in the studio for about 9:30, 10 o'clock. And then
do you think that set you in the right frame of mind to move forward?
Yes. I'm a big advocate of exercise as well. Not obviously just for keeping fit, but just I think, you know, your mental health as well. I think it's... For me, it's just a sense of achievement. I've realised in the last few years that I kind of feel like I have to earn my free time. And when I say free time, I mean, I'm at my most relaxed when I'm drawing. So you could say that's my free time if you're really I am genuinely. This is just like, you think, this ain't work,
No,
you know.
no.
But, you know, if I decide to, I don't know, watch a movie, do a bit of reading, whatever it might be at home, I feel like if I've done something before that, you know, I've earned that.
You've earned that moment.
Even if it's doing some exercise, you know, which it is. And it's, so there's that kind of sense of doing that and the sense of achievement because you've done it, you know, it puts you in the right frame of mind to get started for the rest of the day. Yes. I think if I didn't have that, I'd struggle to sort of just go oomph into it. So and then I just kind of work through it, you know, depending on if there's any other disturbances or I've got to do something else or whatever. But, you know, if it's a normal at-home day, that's it, you know.
That's the routine is king. The routine
for me, the routine is king. Yeah, and that's how I like it. I don't like being taken out of that, you know.
What does that feel like when it's not working to that routine then? What does that look like?
I'm all right if I know it's going to be broken, if you see what I mean. If I know I've got an appointment, whether it's
and things happen in life, don't they? We can't just
exactly.
We can't just do the thing.
Yeah, precisely. It's more frustrating if something does happen and you've suddenly got to break away, and you're assuming you were going to have 3 hours
within the flow.
Yeah, if you're sat there and you think, I've got 3 hours now to do whatever I want to do, and something happens, whether it's even if it's just a phone call or whatever, you think, you know, that's the breaking of it. That's the thing I'm not very good at sort of coping with. But you know, it's not massive. I mean, that's why I kind of try and book my projects to have a kind of a what's it, like a buffer, a kind of a like so I don't want any tight deadlines anymore, because then at least I know that I can just drop something if something. I got an ailing mother, for instance. You know, she's housebound, so she needs, and I'm an only child as well, and she lives locally, so it's kind of, you know, things like that need attending.
You need to pick up the things in life and that care about the people that are around you.
Precisely.
You can't just stay in flow and do art, can you?
No,
that wouldn't be healthy for you.
No, exactly. So things like that I kind of build in. You know, if someone says, the deadline for this is this, and I go, well, give me another week. Yeah, just to be on the safe side. 9 times out of 10, I bring their work in earlier than I say. I've never missed a deadline. But I think the trick is always to go beyond the deadline you think you can bring it in at, just so you know you've got that little wiggle room for any, for want of a better word, emergencies.
Yes.
You know, things that might occur in life. You know, simple as that.
Wonderful. Well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I really do appreciate you sharing with us.
I've enjoyed that. That's been different, actually.
Yeah. I've actually got a question that's come to me. Sometimes these questions come as a bit of a hypothetical. I was just thinking about you as that young child getting those comic books with your dad. And if you could go back to that young child and you would give him a bit of advice to spur him forward to carry on into the world of comic books, what would you say to him?
To what?
To yourself, to
myself.
Your younger self.
I don't know what. Well, it sounds crazy. I don't think I need to say anything because I was there already. Like I said to you before, my mum and dad just encouraged it, you know. And like I said, there was no real. Yeah, my aunt painted a bit, but not seriously. You know, my mum did she's a bit of a drafts person, so she can do a bit of drawing, but none of it was serious, you know. So, I would just think, power to my mum and dad for just going, you know, and because my dad was a small businessman and everything, they could have, and I went to public school and everything, so it was like, probably just because I was an only child, they could afford it, but you know, I could have so easily have been. Forcibly shoved down the more kind of, shall we say, financial route, or go into the business or whatever, But no, nothing. Even the school were pretty encouraging on what I had. Probably because I was so crap at sport.
You're demonstrating there how important it is to encourage people and to nurture them into the places that they want to go, rather than the false.
Well, I mean, that's what I say to my kids. I'd want you to be happy. I don't care what you do. Just got to be happy with what you do. Do not accept, do not accept sort of anything below that. I don't care if you're not earning any money, it doesn't matter so long as you're bloody happy. So long as I mean, my youngest is more like me than my eldest. Interestingly, I'm sort of seeing that he's much more focused, as I was. Something completely different. He's doing paleontology at Bristol, but he's been exactly like him. He's taken a childhood passion, i.e. dinosaurs and fossils and stuff, and worked through that through his whole sort of teenage. He's never deviated. He's always been into it. He's been very sort of like, no, I like this. No one's going to persuade me that this is for children and should be put away, and you should go after more adult pursuits. And now he's doing really well, probably looking to do an MA, in a couple of years' time, and just do his passion. And I was like, well, he'll never be a millionaire. It's something like that because it's such a niche little thing.
But does that matter?
Does it matter? If he loves what he's doing, God, isn't that the best thing, of life? To get up every day and just go, what can I do today? Rather than, oh God, there's so many people that are like that, aren't there? That just hate every working day of their life and just live for a weekend or live for the holiday. And I'm on holiday every day.
What a blessing! What a blessing! What a wonderful way to live, and through a philosophy of just following your happiness.
Absolutely, yeah. I have been seriously lucky. I mean, all of this could have just not happened. It's mercurial. It's totally mercurial. I could have. When Robert asked me to do The Walking Dead, I mean, that was the key moment of my life, probably, in terms of, professional life. And I could have had something else on. I was literally in between jobs. If I was a religious person, I'd obviously say it was destiny of a higher power or whatever. But, it's insane to think, God, this could have all not happened. I could have gone, oh no, I'm working on blah, 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 and it'd have gone to somebody else. Literally. That was it. And I'd never have, this thing would have never happened. But in a
way, it almost sounds like you'd have been happy either way, though. Because you were already following your pursuits.
Well, I was drawing.
Doing the thing.
Yeah. Well,
this has just boosted your career in a new, it's propelled it.
Well, exactly. I mean, there were times before The Walking Dead where things were getting really tight.
Of course.
And the projects weren't coming in, the work wasn't coming in. And I remember thinking at one point, sort of back in the late 90s or something like that, thinking, what else can I do? It got to that stage, starting to seriously think about a job, and things like that. And I just sort of came out of that flunk and just thought, no, don't be stupid, because you're doing what you want to do, no matter how rubbish the script is or how little you might be paid. As long as you can make a living, you are drawing. And that, at the end of the day, that's the main thing. I keep saying I've been very lucky with The Walking Dead and everything after it, but even before it was you had to keep that more in your head a bit more then. Because there are hard times. There are hard times. You've just got to say, so long as you get through them, be thankful for the fact that you are doing what you want to do.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Charlie.
Enough said.
Enough said there. Thank you so much for sharing. It's been a joy having you on the podcast. If anyone isn't familiar with your artwork, where do they find you?
Well, I'm on a couple of socials. I've just left Twitter or X for fairly obvious reasons. So glad to be out of that one. So I'm on Instagram and Facebook. I have my website, just charlieadlard.com. That's kind of it. And I just find me at a convention.
Wonderful.
I tend to be floating around at these things.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Thanks again, Charlie. And if anyone has been watching or listening into this conversation, we're grateful for you for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye then.